progress is happiness. That we as humans feel the most connected and fulfilled with ourselves and others. Doesn't mean there's not going to be pain, but that progress is massive. So many times when people are making goals, they're going for the big, sexy summit goals. But if they don't have these foundational values, if they don't understand their own identities, then going for a summit goal is foolish. It's like trying to go up Mount Everest without any equipment, support, or training. For the people that I work with, I want them always to be doing their values, redoing their values every 6 to 12 months. What you're not acknowledging is that your scale actually went up and it's a 10 out of 20.
Welcome everyone. We're back once again with Jill Collins Connections. Today I have someone that I find so incredibly fascinating. I had an opportunity to meet Kari. This is Kari Schneider, and she's with us today. She's a fellow platinum partner in my community with Tony Robbins, and we just are in many different circles together. And what really attracted me to Kari is that she helped a dear friend of mine with some limiting beliefs and some other areas of his life where he was having some challenges. And I said, how did you do it? Because no one's been able to crack this person. And I'm like, how'd you do it? And so we got on a call last week and we talked at length, and we could have talked for hours. So So I had to tell you, so here, get ready everyone, because you want to get your notebooks out today. If you have never taken your notebook out with any of my interviews before, this is the day to do it. And we are going to be talking about some very high level things today. So get your notebook ready. And let me tell you, this is for someone who is already making a lot of things happen in life. You got it together, right? You're a high level executive, you're a high level high performance coach, your relationships are going well, but there just might be one thing that might need some tweaking. This is what I love, because a lot of times we're doing great in most areas of our life, but maybe there's something that's stopping us. So this is the conversation for you today. So stay tuned. Kari, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Jill. It's a pleasure to be here with you. And I am excited to be able to connect with your audience in this format.
Thank you. Thank you. As we were talking before we started this, with your experience in leadership consulting and performance optimization, and you've even coached Olympic teams and professional athletes and top executives, I always think to myself, who really needs to hear this interview? And to be honest, this is what came up for me, is for people that are so smart that they're already making it happen in life. You're already killing it. So why would you need a coach? Or what your coach's coach? What blew me away is we know so many coaches, and I could interview a bunch of coaches, but I said, Kari, please, I want to interview you. I want to talk to you. I want to share you with the world, because you are playing at such a high level that there are things that you have managed to dissect and show me that I have never heard before. I really appreciate that. And
that means a lot to me.
Yeah, thank you. You're in Canada. And
yes.
and so you're just doing amazing things in the world. And I'd love to know a little bit more about what you do, who you work with to start with, and then let's dive into something that we discussed last week on our call about identity and how our lives get effed up when we are having conflicting stories. But let's start with who you are and what you're up to.
First, I love that effed up. Yeah, we just get a little effed up. We all get a little effed up. It's all good. It's okay. I am a mother with a blended family of 3 stepsons and 2 daughters. I got 2 dogs. I have a husband, and I have been in high performance world of some sort for basically 3 decades. So yes, I started when I was 12, and it's been quite the journey. And to your point, I just love how you framed this, because to your point, those of us who are operating at such a high level, and we look around, and when we look around, we see so many other humans that we're either trying to serve, we're trying to help, that are not operating at the level we are. So it gives us false sense of, oh, we're crushing it. But then somewhere inside, I'm not feeling really great about this area of my life or this area of my life. And sometimes we second guess that and go, I should just really be satisfied, or I should really just be fine with it because I'm doing better than most people I know, or I'm doing better than my peers or my friends or my family. And yet really understanding that if there's that voice or that feeling or that pull inside that says, I'm not satisfied with this particular thing or this particular area, that's something for us to listen to, because when we don't, we're often either out of integrity or we're incongruent with what we truly want, what our true desires are. And if that desire is calling for us to perform at a different level or perform in a higher quality manner, then that's something to explore, most definitely. And that's where I get to come in, whether, like you said, whether it's been with national teams, high performance athletes, but right now, most of the people I work with are top executives. They're CEOs of company. They could be in finance and food industry, tech industries, automotive. Like I've worked in all medical, all kinds of different industries with people who are running those companies or at a leadership level, typically a top leadership level. And then I work with their leadership teams in terms of consulting or culture creation. Those are the areas that we specialize in. But ultimately, we're all human. We're all human. And typically, if we've reached a given level, we often crave or desire something that's either different or a little more improved or another level. And there's nothing wrong with that. However, it always opens up an area that we're either unfamiliar with, we are unskilled at, we have issues or problems in. And that's the beauty of growth. It just opens all that up and we get to discover it within ourselves as humans. So I get to help people with that. Yeah.
We're always growing, and that we can always say we've arrived, and there's nothing wrong and nowhere to get. And at the same time, it's a journey and we get to enjoy the ride and not just like, it's not a destination trying to achieve a destination. I want to mention this. I usually don't do this at the end, but I want people, because I don't click off of this video, because let me tell you, Kari has the most amazing group coaching program, and it's so inexpensive. It's $100 a month. And she told me this and I'm like, what? So yeah. I want you, because you're going to want, by the time you're watching this, you're going to say, I want in on this. I want in on this, me. And I'm like, this is amazing. So, because what I'm hearing is that sometimes we have these one little thing, something we need to tweak, and that we're just not quite getting there and we can't figure out what it is. And last week when we talked, you just cracked the code for me. I think you help people crack the code of all this personal development work we might be doing. We're watching videos, we're reading books, we're seeking advice from psychiatrists, psychologists, counselors, coaches, whatever it might be. And there's just this never quite figuring out what it is. And you said something to me, and I want to get into this identity conversation with you, because I love talking about identity. And what that means is that it's simply said, we always, oftentimes in our world, we say, change your story about yourself, change your life. So if I see myself as someone who's a failure, or I see myself as someone who's overweight, I am going to be that. As I said on another interview recently, is when I was a kid, I always saw myself as the bad girl. And I carried that into my early adulthood. And it was really hard to ever feel like I was ever okay and enough, because I was the bad girl. And because I got in trouble, and I was always at the principal's office and all these different things. And so for me also, when I stopped drinking, when I said I'm a non-drinker, it became easier to deal with that versus just not doing it for now. So we had this conversation about identity, but you took it to another level, and you shared with me the different types of identities that we have. And I just go with the flow where you'd like to start with it. I'm jumping around a lot, but I love this conversation. I'd love to share this with the audience so they can get a feel for this.
So I'm going to circle this around in a way, and I'm going to start with one of the things you started with, which was that group coaching, because it doesn't quite align with some of the things that I originally said. And I'm going to explain how it does and explain how it goes into identity. Back in the day, I used to work contracted in high performance sport. And what this looked like in Canada specifically is that there's funding bodies like Sport Canada and provincial funding bodies that would fund sport. We're talking the highest level of sport in the country, right? So if you think of an Olympian, that's the top of the top, the highest performance. But what would happen in Sport Canada and what would happen in provincial sport bodies is they would only throw a little bit of money to the ones that were performing the best. So you've got these other ones that are really good. They're really good, but they don't get any money. So they're scraping by, they're scraping by because someone else called the sport body has decided that they're grassroots or they're not good enough yet, or they're not at the provincial or the national level. So someone else has decided that. Yet that person down there might feel like, okay, no, I am at the Olympic level. I am up there, but I'm only getting thrown a small bone. I'm only getting thrown either nothing or this tiny little pittance. And so in sport in Canada, quite literally, our developing national level or developmental national level athletes would be living under the poverty line. And so being an entrepreneur and having an entrepreneur brain and running my own business, and I was contracted working with these high level teams. So the national hockey, women's hockey team, the national men's volleyball teams, rugby, national rugby athletes, swimmers, triathlons, rhythmic gymnasts, you name it. I had all kinds of all these high performance athletes, and I was working with high level executives, and they would be living below the poverty line. And I'm like, I have this entrepreneurial brain. I got to figure this out, because if they'll only pay me this tiny amount, and if I'm running a business, how am I going to make a living? Do I give away my time? How do they get the best service in the world and still be able to go for what they want, even though they're making next to nothing? And so I started taking those premier athletes or premier clients who are paying the high prices and grouping them in with some people who were premier in all kinds of areas, but they couldn't quite afford that premier level. And so what happened was this proximity, where those hungry, either younger athletes or the ones that were the up and comers and weren't quite there yet, were pushing the vets, the ones who were getting paid, the ones who were needing a little change up. They were around. So I'd have a diver, a national level diver, in a group that had a national level rugby player and a pro hockey player. So I'd put these people together, and then I'd take a lawyer and put it in with the teacher and the CEO and the doctor. And so we'd have these interesting groups that ended up being catalysts for performance, meaning those hungry ones that weren't quite there yet, they really wanted to be there, but they were motivated more because they were around people who were more successful or had achieved a higher level. And then those ones that were at a higher level, the pot was being stirred because there's somebody hungry in the group. So what I want to point to, so where you pointed to my group masterminds, that's what I created in going, okay, I'm going to create a low-priced group coaching membership that gives world-class skill and world-class quality in order to give the people who really want to grow, really want that information, really want that support and coaching, but don't necessarily have the funds to pay what the mid-size or the multi-million-dollar company is paying for their leadership consulting. But here's the rub, and this is what you pointed to with identity. When I'm describing Sport Canada and I'm describing this provincial sport body, they decided that person wasn't going to get the funding. So that person who hasn't achieved the level yet, so they haven't earned the money, made the national team, built the business, whatever the thing is, they haven't done that yet, are susceptible for believing about themselves something that someone else decided. And that can be one of the most limiting things that we don't even realize is happening in our surroundings, in our circumstance, that, oh, that person decided, maybe just because there were a whole bunch of people in that same field or that same position or that same gender, who the heck knows, right? That person decided that I wasn't making that level or I wasn't getting paid that amount. And then we as humans are susceptible to going, oh, wait a second, I've lived a life that means that there's a school system, a parental system, or whatever system that has told me certain things, and I've adopted that. You gave the example of someone else deciding that you're a bad girl. Someone else decided that, and then you adopted it as your own, but it wasn't your decision. It was something you thought was yours, but it was actually someone else's decision about you that you ended up adopting on as your own identity.
I believe the label that I was given, right? You
exactly.
Know, one grade to the next, and they say, oh, Jill Collins, she's a behavior problem. Watch out for her. And teachers
There
knew.
goes your,
Yeah.
exactly. There's your reputation, and your reputation ends up being those, basically that action kind of value combination times reach. So how many people know that kind of action or identity or whatever value you're putting in the world times how many people know about that, that ends up becoming your reputation. So here you are, you've been assuming an identity that wasn't even yours to begin with. You didn't even decide, somebody else decided. And then there's the time where you decided to become an identity on your own. Or maybe someone even said, oh, I guess you don't drink. No, you're right, I'm a non-drinker. And then you really adopt it on as your own. So the point I'm making is that I said, ultimately, we can be operating in our world with this identity that's running the show, and we're not even fully aware that it's not even ours, that we decided to label ourselves with. It's someone else has labeled us with this identity. And then when you and I spoke, we went a little further into identity in a different concept that I've worked with in more deep environments. So for instance,
Real quick, before we go to that next part, because I know I want to just, first of all, I love what you were talking about with regards to just bringing in up and comers with people that are achieving. That just lights me up. I get chills. That's like, yes, that's that top 33%, the people who are trying to find, that's my community. That's the people that are watching this. They're saying, how do I up level? I can't afford something like Platinum Partners. I can't afford to do certain things and be in circles. It's easy for Jill to say, or Kari to say, but hey, there are so many people out there that are willing to reach a hand out and help. People have helped me. And so that the fact that you are doing this, just like we are aligned. That is exactly what I love and I want to do myself. And so it's so beautiful to see that. The other thing you mentioned is the thing about our labels and people and the way that we adopt labels that other people give us. And when we realize that we have a choice, that we can actually look at that label and say, who am I? And we're going to get into more depth on the identity thing and what that identity and labels in a second. But the part that often people say then is they go, oh, well, when we first get into personal development, we learn about affirmations or incantations, as sometimes they're called. And so these are things where we say, I'm beautiful, I'm a wonderful person, I'm a good girl, I'm whatever it is. And we say this over, and maybe that helps, but there's also that subconscious, which goes into this, what we're going to get into in a minute, is why that alone doesn't work. I think you will agree with me, that doesn't work by itself, because our inner being is going inside saying, yeah, that's bullshit. You think you're not skinny. Look at you, go get on the scale right now. You're lying. You're whatever. So it's that. So this is, I think I just want to tee that up, because a lot of people say, oh, I will it and physically, and I do all these things. And so it's deeper than that.
So I love that you bring that up. And I love that you've got an audience who's aware of incantations, affirmations, things like that. And I'm going to propose just a fast way to do a check on the affirmation that you're saying and how to make it actually functional and usable. And the easiest way to do is, if I'm saying, you said something about getting on the scale, you said let's say it's, I love my body, right? That's the affirmation. I love my body. I love my body. I love my body. And the person's committed to saying the affirmation, but like you said, in the back of their mind, they're like, I don't believe it. I don't love my body. So that's the first thing, is to do the gut check. Do I believe what I'm saying? Because if I don't, just stop wasting your time. Just stop. You're going to then start thinking you're wasting your time. You're then going to beat yourself up for doing something or not following through when you've said your affirmations and wonder why it's not working, and on it goes. So first of all, do the gut check. Do you believe what you're saying? If you do not believe what you are saying, then stop saying it. But instead of completely throwing it all in the garbage, take just a small step backwards and go, what can I believe? What can I, and I will literally pull out a spectrum and go, and this ends up often being about someone's business. What do they believe? What are their affirmations, or what do they believe about their business? What do they believe about their relationship? What do they believe about their relationship with money? I have a fantastic affirmation that I do believe, and it's, I'm a sexy, savvy queen mastering my money machine.
Ooh.
And I know you write that. You borrow,
Ooh,
anybody can borrow that.
Everybody
Write
get
it
that one
down.
down, rewind.
I am
Tap
a
back 10
sexy,
seconds.
I'm a sexy, savvy queen mastering my money machine. But
Good.
what can I believe? You walk a step back and go, okay, can I believe? Let's go way to the other end. If you don't love your body, do you believe that you have a body? Oh yeah, I can believe I have a body. Can you believe that you have a functional body? Yeah, I can believe. Now you got to realize that if somebody's saying I love my body, they're probably trying to get away from I hate my body. They're likely trying to get away from I hate my body. Or if you put it in the business context, they're trying to get away from I hate my business sucks, this is so hard, whatever. They're trying to get away from something that's a thought or an affirmation or a belief, a thought that's repeating in their brain that isn't working for the outcome that they want to have happen. So if they're going from I hate my body to I love my body, or I hate my business to I love my business, then it comes into, okay, do you believe you have a business? Do you believe you have a body? Yes. If that's a yes, what's the next step? Do you believe you have a functional body? Do you believe you have a functional business? Maybe yes, maybe no. Maybe there's some things going on, but what is it? Maybe it's, do you believe that you have a strong body? Now, if somebody gets to the space of believing they have a strong body, let's say this is a woman, let's say this is a person who has had a baby. If you get to a place of that, then you're in a space that's a whole lot closer to I love my body than it is to I hate my body. And that's something that they could repeat and they could believe. And if they can believe that, then that's going to be the thought that, if repeated enough, becomes the belief. If that belief is repeated enough about themselves, as in, I am a strong-bodied person, then it's an identity. So any of the I am statements, if it's a belief about yourself, so multiple thoughts over and over again, and believing it about yourself, then becomes the identity. So you apply that to business, you apply that to relationships, you apply that to life, all these major areas that really have us working and trying to perform, then we turn the things. That's how I ended up coming up with, I'm a sexy, savvy queen mastering my money machine. What do I want to believe about myself? And what could I believe about myself? Now, this came from a human who, I have lots of background traumas, lots of spaces from childhood that could have me have been an addict, have me have zero money in the bank, have me have no relationships. But it's this mind work that ends up creating the value and creating the actions, the emotional states and the actions in the world that create what actually shows up as my life, as 5 kids and husband and multiple things going in my businesses and all of those great things. So if the thing that I think you were pointing to before is, what happens when we know we want something, we know we believe something about ourselves, and yet we're still in conflict. And what I've done in longer sessions, and this takes a little bit of time sometimes, but is really sitting down and making a quadrant and going, what are my obvious identities? What do I know about myself? What do I believe about myself? And my obvious identities are things like, if somebody has some sort of title, then maybe an obvious identity might be doctor or CEO or business owner or woman or spouse or sister. Those could be some obvious identities. And then there's some super identities. There's some things that are like, this is what I'm good at. This is my zone of genius. This is where I crush it. I am a top 1%er in being fit or strong. Some people really identify with CrossFit. I'm a triathlete. I'm a CrossFit. I'm a 1% earner or a 10% earner in the world. Whatever's the super, I am a super connector. Whatever is somebody's super identity, their zones of genius. And then we go into the secret identities. And the secret identities are the things that you know about you, but most people just don't know about you. Most people look at me and they're like, oh, you eat so healthy and you're so fit and you've got it all organized. But what they don't know is that I tend to hang on to certain items of clothing way too long. I'm a secret, not hoarder, but certain single item hoarders. Or I'm a secret identity of a baker. Most people don't know I like to bake. Some people are nail biters. They've got these secret identities that they know about themselves, but other people don't know. And then the fourth category is hidden identities. And these are the things that aren't like secret ones we know about ourselves, but other people don't know about us. But hidden ones are ones that we don't always realize about ourselves. And sometimes uncovering these hidden identities are where the magic are between unlocking the performance that you don't know why you're not performing in a certain area. You can't quite see it. And oftentimes there's what I call an identity conflict. So I know I've gone on a long.
No, it's good. This is the part that I really wanted to get to, the identity conflict, because this is the part that, like I said, I love teaching on identity, and it's so amazing and sharing that. The part that I never heard before was when can we make an example of when we have identity conflict?
Okay.
I love this so much.
So we chatted about a couple of examples, but I can give an example of when I was transitioning my business. I was selling a building in my company, in my corporation, and then I was going to actually buy a property. I'm actually sitting at this property right now, so that'll give you some clues. I was buying this property with multiple buildings, and it was an old fishing camp, and I was going to do some restoration on it, but I was buying it from my father. And he would not leave it to me in the will. He would never let me lease or partner in business. The only way I could ever have access to this property is if I bought it. So I was using my life's work of equity to liquefy and buy this property. And in doing so, there were some challenges with the business deal. He was bailing on the business deal a couple of times, and I was just struggling. I was struggling emotionally. I was struggling with how to get through. And I did my own exercise on me that I would do with others in strategy or coaching sessions or retreats. And I did it on myself. And I was like, okay, so I went through, because it's a success formula. It's like, do I have the mindset, which is the identity? I am an entrepreneur. I am the owner of this property. And I did the mindset piece. And then the next part is the A, and the A is the action. Am I doing all the actions? Yes, I've got my lawyer, I've got the real estate all lined up, all these things. And then skill set. Yeah, I've been in business for 15 years. I've negotiated, but I could rate myself on those things. And I'm a person who likes metrics and like to really understand the black and white of it. So I could rate myself. Was my identity strong? Yes, like an 8 or 9 out of 10. Is my actions, are they strong? Yep, I'm taking all the actions. They're like a 9.5 out of 10. And then I'm looking at it, my skill set, how's that? Maybe not quite as strong, but it's still up at probably an 8. And then I look, and so what does that give me for success? I'm probably averaging somewhere around an 8 or 8.5 out of 10. But there's this one last piece, and it's an A, and it's at the very top, and it's called alignment. And it's that identity. It's okay, if I am an entrepreneur, then am I, and then I pick one of my other identities that I know about myself. And I went for the obvious one. Am I a daughter? But yeah, I can be an entrepreneur and a daughter. So that's a 1. I give myself a 1, as in a yes. So if I am a daughter, am I an owner of this property? And I was like, yeah, I can still be a 1. I can be my father's daughter, take over his property and be the owner of this property. And I feel congruent. It's aligned. Those two identities of being a daughter and owning the business are aligned. But then this interesting thing happens, because when we really want to peel back our identities, we start adding adjectives to the obvious identities. So you've got these obvious identities like a CEO. Am I a good CEO? Am I a compelling CEO? Am I a leading CEO or a motivating CEO? Those are all these adjectives we can add to these obvious ones. So I took that obvious one of daughter and said, if I am the owner of this property, am I a loved daughter. And all of a sudden it was a zero. It was a no. And it blew my mind. And I was like, okay, this is why I'm struggling so hard with this business deal, is that somewhere within my identities, there was a conflict. I saw myself as a business person. I'd been in business for many years, but now I was taking my business identity to this very personal identity of business with my father. And then realizing that somewhere in me, I felt that if I was the owner and doing business, the owner of this property, I would no longer be a loved daughter. And it was very hidden, very hidden. But
Y'all listen up. Y'all need to go back and rewind. If you were snoozing and you're cooking and you're doing something else, you're driving, mark this point and pause it and go back to about 5 minutes of what Kari just said. This part is classic. Never before heard. I personally haven't heard it before this way. This was so groundbreaking to me that we are going like, yeah, everything seems great. I'm qualified. I'm doing all these things. This applies in love relationships too. I bet. I can imagine, because I'm thinking to myself, yeah, everyone wants to be in a relationship. My matchmaking service, this was the whole situation, is that everyone wants to be in a relationship. And I couldn't figure out why, when I match them with somebody, they managed to sabotage it, or they would blow it. I'm like, it's the big leap. The Dr. Gay Hendricks, I love that book so much, is the upper limit problem. Why are we doing all these things? But you take it in such a more just so like laser in there of adjective is the key. The adjectives are the key to this.
It is. And it's the adjective, and it's the if, this, then.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
Because then we understand, okay, wait a second. So I can be a daughter, but am I a good daughter? Am I a loved daughter? Am I a loving daughter? But if that, then does this apply? And that's where the disconnect happens. And this is where we're floundering in certain areas of our lives going. I remember one time a family member of mine, they kept wanting to go to this event, really wanting to be there. And then ultimately at the last minute, they would always cancel and not leave. Because somewhere for them, this identity of, yes, they wanted to be supportive, they wanted to show up at this event, but somewhere in there was an identity of basically a recluse. They didn't want to be in social environments. They didn't want to travel. They didn't want to. And so if as an individual, if we cannot see our own identities and actually honor them, embrace them, or work with them, then we end up beating ourselves up going, why is this happening? I don't understand why I want this and I can't follow through. I don't understand why I'm struggling with this so much. And it seems like it's just me. But if we explore and unpack, okay, what do I actually believe about myself? What do I identify with? What is making up this thing called my persona or my ego, or what I conceptualize as me? And when you can unpack a bit of that, you can realize that, okay, now I see where the conflict is. These two things or two identities are from completely different worlds, and now they're intersecting in some form or another. And if we can see that, then we have a level of witnessing and a level of consciousness that allows us to still love on ourselves and then make decisions from a space of observation, instead of make decisions from a space of being stuck, from a space of being in this emotional drama, from the space of going like one step forward, one step back, and keep going and skipping in place.
Because we beat ourselves up for that a lot when we're feeling like, why can't I just do this? Why can't I just stop drinking? Why can't I just stay in a relationship? Why can't I just succeed in business? Fill in the blank, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so then we go into this just total beating ourselves up in self-judgment and negative self-talk. And then it's a spiral. It's the drama. It's the terrible feeling. People who are feeling like they can't. I love the example of socializing and family members who feel like maybe people don't like me. I don't get people always tell me I'm not a good socializer. I'm an introvert. That's another one. Are you really an introvert? Maybe you are an introvert. But then we make that who we are. And so we say, I'm not good in social settings. And then, so it's that really asking ourselves empowering questions, finding out why. But I keep thinking about like this thing with relationships too, is people who say, I want a relationship, but then they also have this conflicting thing is freedom is so important to me, and being independent. And we can really dive in and see the two colliding. is that we're wondering why
It's
we can't ever attract or find somebody that actually wants to be in a long-term relationship with us because we've got two different identities that aren't matching or that
yeah,
are
it's
conflicting.
if somebody sees themselves as a free spirit, I am a free spirit. Am I a free spirit if I am married?
Ooh.
Like, there's your two identity, because an identity of married, I am married. I am in a long-term committed relationship called a contract of marriage. So there's the identity. I am a spouse. So if I am a free spirit, am I a spouse? Or if I am a spouse, am I a free spirit? And then if that's a zero, then all those other success things of your mindset, your actions, and your skill set, now you've got a zero mixed in with there. So you take it from an 80% likelihood of success like I had, and it ends up dropping down to a 50 or a 60 because I have a zero factored in. And that's where then your likelihood, that's my success formula. It's called mass. And then when we do the alignment part of the exercise, it's a mass. We amass our success. And so that success formula, ultimately, we look at it and go, so we think our success should be this. And then we're frustrated because we're not getting 80 or 90% success, even though it looks on paper, it looks like we should. And that's why we peel back and go, okay, wait a second, where's the conflict? And this is why it brings us down to a 50 or 60% likelihood of success. And that's where we have to find congruence. And then we start to ask ourselves, what does it look like for me to be a free spirit and be a spouse? What would that look like if I really wanted to live in a loving, long-term committed relationship and be a free spirit? What does that look like? And then literally listing out actions or visions or all of the descriptions around what that looks like for an individual, because it's very subjective. This is not a defined thing in the world. It is a subjective thing in the world. Your definition of success is very different than my definition of success. And so when someone can say, what does that look like in the world? And then go, well, is that what I want? Do I still want that? And what would I need to believe in order for that to be true? And then it comes down to things like, that's where a new affirmation comes in. And it comes down into something like, I can be a free spirit and a loving spouse, or I can be a loving spouse and an incredibly active free spirit at the same time by being this way or by doing these things or by whatever. And we fill in the blanks that really resonate with us. And then actually follow through on it instead of being at the first stage, which is just simply stuck because our brains are having a glitch, and then it changes our emotional state, it changes the actions that we take, and we don't end up taking the actions to follow through on what we really want in the world.
Yeah, and I can imagine that one area, this is why I said this is for high level people that are excelling in most areas of their life, and maybe there's that one thing that just isn't quite working. And we always say, you can't have everything, right? Maybe you can.
Oh, yes, you can.
And so, yeah, because I'm seeing that if everything's working, but maybe say a relationship at home's not working, that it does indeed affect everything else. And so you can't just say, oh, my wife, and we've been married forever and it's just what it is. And we get everything else working else everywhere else. But that one's just like, it's like, whatever.
It permeates. And the thing is that we don't realize it's like going nose blind. You are in something for so long, it's permeating something else. You're just used to it. So what you think is a 10 out of 10, what you're not acknowledging is that your scale actually went up and it's a 10 out of 20.
Ooh.
And
so what was a 10 out of 10 at one time? We're now, it's a 10 out of 20. So we've got 10 to get to 20. We need 10 more to get to 20 now.
The scale changed. Our own scale changed, and we didn't acknowledge that it changed. And this is why, for the people that I work with, I want them always to be doing their values, redoing their values every 6 to 12 months. And the reason for that, even if it's not, you and I have done Date with Destiny probably a few times, but that is an extensive multi-day process. But even just a short hour-long process of re-exploring your values every 6 months to a year, because the people that I tend to work with and that you're around as well, we grow and we change. And what that means is that We have to take another look at our values, and we also have to take a look at what we define as success. Because my definition of success in my relationship in my 20s was to be with someone I loved. My definition of success in my relationship now is not just that. It's to be with someone I love, yes, but someone who shares values, someone who respects me, someone who I show love for. Maybe my definition of success in relationship is just feeling loving around these people. Maybe it's something completely within my control. But my point is that if I allowed my definition of success from my 20s to still be in effect in my 50s, then that's a problem if we haven't redefined what success is in business or in categories of business, in our relationships, in our own personal wellness and health. I look at my career, my definition of success in my 20s was doing something that I love. And then my definition of success was probably getting athletes to the Olympics. But now my definition of success revolves around helping people achieve their goals and achieving financial freedom in doing things I absolutely adore doing. It's a different ballgame. It changes. So I think that I think we all know somebody who is the exact same as they were in high school, or they're exactly the same as they were when you were kids. But even those people who are very similar and have a very certain life, there's very little uncertainty in their life. They want things to be the same. They don't want really much growth or change. Even those people could probably take a look and go, I could redefine my definition of success in this area because this is stale. Because I really subscribe to the notion that progress is happiness. That we as humans, we feel fulfilled. We feel the most connected and fulfilled with ourselves and others when there's progress in some area. And it doesn't matter what area. It could be the cleanliness of your kitchen. I don't care. Progress in your health, progress in your for sure relationships. That's a big low-hanging fruit. But if there's progress somewhere, anywhere in your life, most of us will feel some level of fulfillment and connection with ourselves and others. And that's really where happiness tends to come from. Doesn't mean there's not going to be pain, but that progress is massive.
Yeah, I love that, the progress. And I even teach that when I was coaching divorced and widowed women in the beginning, is the small steps. It could be something actionable, like just doing the laundry, taking a shower, getting out of bed, just finding that one thing a day to feel good about that you're making some movement. That's at the beginning stages when we're really stuck in some area after a major loss or something that's really got a hold on us. But something occurred to me too, is a lot of times people don't do this at work until their hair's on fire. And they're like in the mess, in the weeds, and they're like, oh my God, now I've got to look at this. There's those kinds of people, and this is helpful. But then there are those who, if we're really thinking about it, we're being proactive and we're saying everything's really going well, there's still an opportunity to keep this going and even make it better. And sometimes we don't even know what we don't know, which I think is what you're sharing in so many ways here is, wow, I didn't realize that there's even a way to actually truly have everything I want. And it's not, let me find techniques on how to delegate or eliminate, and then I can have it all. I don't have to do the things I don't like to do. And all these physical things we've learned to do, that we've learned to adapt, is hire someone to do that project you don't like. But there's still what's happening inside. Because I think really, Jeremy Newsom, a friend of mine, I've interviewed here before, and he's one of our followers. He says, I love what he says about time. He says, I have a stupid amount of time on my hands. Feel free to reach out anytime. And this guy's huge, and he's got a ton of followers. And I'm like, bro, that's a big thing to say to somebody. Are you serious? And I'm like, I want to adopt that, because it's like, there's so many things there. But yeah, I was getting off track with that. One of the things that does occur to me too, that I want to cover, is a lot of people are into goal setting, especially at the beginning of the year. They want to set goals and they say, let's just go through all the goals. I want to do something for health and wellness, and I want to do something for my business and my personal life and all these different areas. But I almost think it's not enough, because based on what you're saying, is that we really should be looking at values as well, like why, questioning what success is to us. Because
Mhm.
that's the checklist. That's the part that just says, what do I want to get at the grocery store when we don't even know what we're going to cook?
Yeah.
You know, you make the
Yeah.
list, you
And
go,
there,
let me just buy stuff at the store, and you get home and like, oh, I didn't even look at a recipe. Why did I buy all this stuff?
yes, yes, because I think this is really powerful because it still points back to understanding ourselves, because it's like you say, if you have all the groceries, but who cares if you don't know what you're going to make? And then you end up with all these groceries rotting in your fridge because you didn't know why you wanted to make something, you didn't know what you wanted to make, and then you didn't have the right amounts for what you wanted to do. So it ended up being a waste. And that's what happens when people make goals that they don't understand themselves enough to understand whether the goal is something that's appropriate for who they are, what they want, what their values are. Because someone who says they want to have the body of an Olympian or the body of a whatever fitness model, then they have to know themselves well enough to know that, do I want to work on my physicality that many hours a day, or do I want to eat in that way? Is that it within my value system? Because if it's not, then it's a mismatched goal. And I think that goals fall into various categories of, if I think of two categories, there's goals that I call some of them base camp goals and summit goals. And I have a model called performance peak, and it all plays into identity and it plays into habit. But base camp goals are those goals that we know are going to continually serve us. They are goals that are probably not a huge reach, but are really, they exponentially serve us. It might be something like, it's not super glamorous or sexy. It might be something like just getting up half an hour earlier every day. Maybe nobody's ever going to see that goal. Maybe it's not, but it's a base camp goal that's going to serve so many different things and create a foundation that helps you go towards something that might be a summit goal. And a summit goal is something that you're not even sure is possible. Something that probably would take an identity shift or an identity change in order to get there. And so many times when people are making goals, they're going for the big, sexy summit goals. And if they don't have the foundation of even understanding themselves and knowing themselves, that's the foundation of the whole performance peak, the whole mountain. And it's before even any sort of base camp goal. So it's sexy and cool to go for reaching $1 million in their business for the first time, or losing 40 pounds, or finding the love of their life, or whatever. But if they don't have these foundational values, if they don't understand their own identities, if they haven't gotten routines and rituals that are base camp goals in place to make a solid foundation, then going for a summit goal is foolish. It's like trying to go up Mount Everest without any equipment, support, or training.
I love this so much.
I teach this stuff all the time, and then I forget that most of the world, because I say it in my head and to other people, but I don't say it in a public forum often enough, I think.
Yeah, and here's the thing, and here's why I said everybody rewind, get your notebook out if you were driving and all this, go back. I'm telling you, this is the one to do this with. If you haven't done it before, get the notebook out. There's a cool thing. I talked about your group mastermind, which is so reasonable, and I am such a believer in this. This is so cool. And then the other thing that you just told me about, which I didn't know about until today, is that you're doing a free, it's free, right? The 5-day
challenge. Yeah. And that's coming up in October. And this first one is all for women only. And I've never done this before, because most of my clients in business, most of my clients are men, quite honestly, but I do have women clients, and I consult for companies that are women owned as well. But this first one is for women. It's called Communicate Like a Queen. It's a 5-day free challenge. And then that'll be in October. Then in November, we're doing Communicate Like Kings. And then in December, we're doing Communicate Like a King and Queen, because ultimately, c'est quoi, that real intangible of having an amazing life is typically having a relationship that is amazing. And it doesn't, king and queen doesn't necessarily mean man and woman. It can be man and man or woman and woman. It's about what we identify with as our energy, our masculine or our feminine energies. That's what's coming up. And they're new. I've done challenges before, but these ones are they're inspiring for me, as in I'm so excited to do it because as you can probably tell, I've learned it and earned it. I've put myself through the work and I've learned the stuff, and I'm really excited to share some of these amazing skills and techniques to other people.
Gosh, you are so uniquely qualified, and there's so many things that I just love about what you're teaching, and I will definitely be a part of the challenges, and I just, anything I could do to support you. And gosh, everybody just share this video with people. This is why I created this channel. Kari is doing exactly what I love. And it's connecting you to people, connecting you to resources, connecting you to just beautiful souls, people that are, when I talk about the 33% rule, and that's that top 33%. And Kari is in my top 33% for sure. And find those people. This is where it is. And Kari is creating community for you to be able to do that. Definitely check out these links. We're getting this interview out ASAP, so you have access to this, all this great information.
Oh, you are too kind. And Jill, thank you so much for what you're doing, because it's platforms like this, it's the work that you tirelessly do that really help people have options and have tools and have resources that they wouldn't have otherwise had. So thank you for doing what you're doing. And I'm so grateful to be a part of what your mission and vision is. So thank you for having me with you.
Thank you for being here. Oh, awesome. Thank you everyone for watching today. And remember, share and subscribe, and tell me, put in the comments, ask us some questions. Kari will be here to answer them. And we'll both be here to answer questions. And let me know what you want to see more of. Do you like this content? What do you like? What do you want to see more of? Definitely let us know. And remember, stay connected. Take care. Thanks, everybody.